He wasn't in the history books. He didn't wear a uniform. And officially, he never existed. But deep in the jungles of Vietnam, U.S. soldiers, Viet Cong fighters, even local villagers began whispering about something more terrifying than bullets or bombs. A man who moved like a shadow, struck without warning, and left behind scenes so gruesome, even battle-hardened soldiers would vomit at what they found. Some called him the ghost. Others called him the butcher of the trees. But those who claimed to have seen what he did still wake up screaming. And this is his story. A shadow in the jungle, the man without a name. It started with whispers, the kind passed between trembling lips during midnight patrols. Not about enemy ambushes, booby traps, or snipers, but something worse, something unexplainable. In the dense jungle of Tay Ninh province, U.S. recon teams discovered a body. Not just dead, violated, eyes removed, skin peeled in perfect strips, symbols carved into the chest, with a blade so clean it looked surgical. This wasn't Viet Cong, one soldier wrote in his journal. They don't do this. Even Charlie has rules. Over the next few months, more reports surfaced. Severed limbs laid in geometric patterns. Intestines hung from trees like a warning. Corpses burned, but only half, as if the killer wanted to send a message. And always the same chilling detail. No bullet wounds. No signs of struggle. Just gone. Then found. At first, commanders blamed it on VC psychological warfare. But then, the pattern flipped. Now it wasn't just Vietnamese bodies turning up. It was American deserters. AWOL soldiers. Men known for abusing locals, stealing supplies, or going rogue. One was found nailed to a banyan tree, his dog tag stuffed in his mouth. Another, a confirmed rapist, was found hanging upside down, throat slit, with a note carved into his chest. We remember. None of this made it into official reports. But radio chatter shifted. Suddenly, soldiers refused to go out alone, not because of the Viet Cong, but because of something else. A shadow. A man. Or maybe not a man at all. One corporal put it bluntly. There's something out there that ain't on our side. And it ain't on theirs either. The phantom operative, born in chaos. Every war has ghosts. But this one had a ghost that hunted both sides. Eventually, someone gave him a name. Not a code name. Not a call sign. Just a whispered title in hushed, fearful tones. The White Ghost. Apache. Or, among terrified South Vietnamese villagers, Viet Cong Mat, the demon without a face. But this was no spirit. He was real. Eyewitness accounts, though rare, describe a white male, around 6 feet tall, moving alone through VC-controlled jungles without backup, without gear, sometimes even barefoot. And yet, he always survived. A man made by war. One theory said he was ex-Special Forces, abandoned after a failed CIA operation. Another claimed he was part of a classified unit so deep undercover, even his fellow Americans didn't know he existed. But the most chilling rumor? That he volunteered to be cut loose. Given one mission. Terrorize the enemy. Break their minds. Show them what real fear is. But then, he kept going. Even after command pulled out. Even after the war started winding down. Because by then, he wasn't following orders anymore. A master of psychological warfare. He didn't just kill. He manipulated fear. He'd leave bodies in ceremonial displays. Arrange skulls in spirals or triangles. Burn symbols into trees, the ground, even corpses. Ancient-looking markings that terrified local shamans. A captured VC lieutenant once said through an interpreter, "He walks like fog. He speaks with death. When we see his mark, we leave the jungle." Even hardened Viet Cong soldiers refused to patrol alone in areas he'd been spotted. Some units changed entire routes to avoid him. Not because of strategy, not because of weaponry, but because of sheer psychological trauma. And the most disturbing part? There's no confirmed photo. No ID. No confirmed nationality. Just rumors. Trails of horror. and survivors who wish they hadn't survived. The war within the war. This wasn't a soldier fighting an enemy. This was something far more dangerous. A predator unleashed on a battlefield already drowning in blood. By 1969, commanders in certain provinces began noticing something disturbing. Yes, the Viet Cong were suffering casualties, but so were American soldiers. Not from enemy ambushes or friendly fire, but from someone who knew how they moved, and who hunted them anyway. No one was safe. Deserters, drug dealers, men who had gone native. Even a few officers who were known for abusing civilians. They started turning up dead in ways no soldier should die. One Marine, dishonorably discharged after a war crime investigation, was found tied to a tree, eyes gouged, fingers removed. Another soldier had both kneecaps shattered and a sign tied around his neck. "I kill women." And then there were the patrols that went silent, only to be found days later, not just slaughtered, but humiliated. One soldier had his uniform reversed and pinned open, as if to shame him in death. A rogue weapon. Some insiders whispered that this phantom was once a government asset. A secret program, not officially sanctioned, that had gone too far. Psychological warfare weaponized into a human being. Programmed to terrify, break, and erase. But they lost control. And now, he wasn't choosing sides. He was choosing targets. Classified briefings, erased logs. Declassified snippets hint at field reports submitted by terrified officers. Unidentified hostile acting outside engagement protocols. No known unit match. Appears to operate alone. Extreme trauma signs on enemy and friendly corpses. Recommend containment or termination. But when higher-ups were pressed, the reports vanished. Some said the CIA scrubbed them. Others said the Pentagon never acknowledged them at all. Because admitting his existence would mean admitting that America let him loose. Survivor accounts. "We heard screaming. I've seen death. But this wasn't death. This was someone making a point." The stories were fragmented, scattered like ash across the jungles of Vietnam. But they all carried the same chill. A terror that didn't belong on any battlefield. The scout who lived. One South Vietnamese scout, working with a U.S. recon team, recalled the night they stumbled upon a clearing. "We found them, 5 Viet Cong. But they weren't shot. They weren't even tied up. They were arranged in a circle, sitting upright, eyes open, mouths sewn shut." He shook as he recalled it decades later. It was like a ritual. And the flies, they covered everything. The team radioed in, but command told them to move. "Not our objective," they were told. "Don't engage. Don't ask questions." U.S. Marines. "We heard screaming. It wasn't them." In 1970, a Marine squad in the Central Highlands heard something during a night patrol. Screams, not in Vietnamese, but in perfect English. "Help me. Don't do this. Why are you doing this?" They thought it was one of their own, maybe captured. They rushed in. But when they arrived, they found no one. Just a tree marked with 3 bloody slashes. And a boot, standard issue, hanging from a branch. One Marine threw up. Another refused to return to the jungle after that. He was court-martialed for desertion. But he didn't care. "Whatever did that out there," he said, "wasn't fighting a war. It was enjoying it." A medic's worst memory. A former field medic, now in his 70s, gave one interview under anonymity. "We were told to retrieve a body. But when we got there, it wasn't one of ours. It was Viet Cong. Cut open from sternum to pelvis. Organs displayed like trophies. Each one arranged in a row. Still steaming." He paused. "That wasn't for us to find. That was for someone else." He never spoke of Vietnam again. Skull and crossbones, not even the enemy wanted to see him. A former Viet Cong tunnel fighter, now a rice farmer, once said this. "When we saw his mark on a tree, we turned back. No orders. No bravery. Just fear. He was not a man. He was punishment. And yet, He was very real. A shadow in the jungle. A ghost America never claimed. A horror that both sides feared equally. Psychops or psychopath. The military cover-up. Some monsters are born. Others are engineered. By 1971, too many field units had seen the signs. Unexplainable kills. Mutilations with surgical precision. Symbols burned into trees and flesh. Radio static followed by screaming. Patrols that vanished, leaving only gear, blood, and silence. Soldiers began writing it down, sketching what they found. Some even photographed the carnage with smuggled cameras. But when those photos were submitted, they disappeared. One officer submitted a sealed report to command with over a dozen field testimonies. A week later, he was transferred. His field notes were confiscated. He was told, "It never happened. Forget it. Move on." Blacked out briefings. Recently declassified military documents from the Nixon era contain curious redactions. Unaccounted field activity in Grid 7A. Psychological destabilization tactics. Not confirmed friendly. Request denied. Subject not recognized in active command. One memo, dated April 1971, simply reads, "We created a weapon without a cage." Then black ink. 6 full pages, redacted. Another official document acknowledges sightings of a non-uniformed hostile moving independently in combat zones. High probability of rogue CIA or disavowed Spec Ops personnel. Recommendation: cease inquiries. Whispered warnings and unofficial threats. Veterans who tried to speak up, even decades later, were warned off. One sergeant who spoke about the butcher at a post-war conference received a call the next day. Blocked number. The voice only said, "You saw too much. Keep it that way." He never spoke publicly again. The theory that chills everyone. The most widely accepted theory among Black Ops historians? That he was part of a deep CIA psych operations program, possibly MK-Ultra adjacent. Trained to kill without hesitation. Terrorize with ritualistic display. Break morale on both sides. But something went wrong. Maybe he snapped. Maybe he chose to go rogue. Maybe he was abandoned and simply kept going. Either way, the government's stance became clear. Disavow. Erase. Bury it. And that's exactly what they did. But the stories, the fear, and the bodies, those couldn't be erased. When the hunter became the hunted, terror works until it turns on its creator. By late 1971, something shifted. The jungle grew quieter, not because the war was ending, but because something else had been set in motion. Captured Viet Cong documents, smuggled out of Cambodia by defectors, revealed an unthinkable development. A special VC unit had been formed, not to fight Americans, but to track and kill one of them. The Shadow Unit. They called it Luke Luong Bong Toi. The Shadow Force. Elite fighters, chosen not for strength, but for fearlessness. Because their mission wasn't tactical. It was vengeance. "We do not fear bombs or bullets," one document read. "But we fear the man who kills like a ghost." They began laying traps. Pits lined with sharpened bamboo, mines set in the trees, baited corpses meant to lure him in. Sometimes, they caught something. A few claimed to have found his trail, boot prints where none should be, blood that wasn't from animals. One report from a VC commander said, "Our men found a clearing, and they wept. They wept because they realized he was not stalking us. He was letting us find him. But he always escaped." Every trap ended the same way. A snapped branch, but no blood. A sign carved into a tree, 3 slashes. Once, a severed VC finger, left dangling from fishing wire like bait. No one ever claimed to see him. But they all felt him. The fear grew so great that even the Shadow Force reportedly refused to continue the mission after 2 failed attempts. Some deserted. Others disappeared. The war's most secret manhunt had collapsed under the weight of its own fear. And yet, to this day, no body was ever recovered. No kill confirmed. No uniform. No face. No identity. Just a trail of horror, vanishing into myth. What happened to him? One day, the killings stopped. No explanation. No discovery. He was just gone. By the end of 1972, the whispers faded. No more mutilated corpses. No more eerie symbols carved into trees. No more patrols found frozen in ritualistic death. The jungle grew quieter, not because peace had come, but because he had vanished, dead, or disavowed. Some believed he'd finally been killed. A lucky landmine. A sniper's shot in the dark. But then came the strange sightings. In Guatemala, in 1983, bodies found arranged eerily like those in Vietnam. No bullet holes. No wounds. Just ritual. In Nicaragua, during the Contra War, American advisors reported losing 2 units. The corpses were left in a formation that spelled out a single phrase in English. Still watching. Others say he returned to the U.S. Lived in the woods. Stayed feral. One veteran claims he saw him in Montana, outside a grocery store, staring at raw meat behind a glass case. His eyes weren't normal, the vet said. They were hollow. Like he'd never come back from the jungle. Or was he never real? There's one final theory. That the white ghost never existed. That he was a psychological weapon. Invented by the U.S. government or even the Viet Cong themselves. A boogeyman created to break the enemy's will. A myth wrapped in truth. But if that's the case, who made those kills? Who left the symbols? Who carved up both sides with surgical, inhuman cruelty? No man can exist as a myth and a murderer at the same time, unless he was never a man to begin with. The war America never acknowledged. In every war, there are monsters. Some wear uniforms. Some carry flags. But the worst, they carry no name at all. The Vietnam War scarred millions. But hidden within the chaos was a story too disturbing for the history books. A man, or maybe something else, that moved like a ghost, killed like a beast, and vanished like a curse. A truth too ugly to tell. He fought no war for freedom. He fought no war for peace. He waged a personal apocalypse. A campaign of terror so cruel, even those who benefited from it were too afraid to claim him. Some say he was a rogue weapon, one veteran whispered. Others say he was the war itself, walking on 2 legs. And maybe that's the scariest part. That in Vietnam's darkest corners, America didn't just unleash men into the jungle. It created one. His name was never printed. His medals never awarded. His grave, if it exists, lies unmarked, just like the lives he erased. But in the minds of the men who survived, he's still out there, still watching, still hunting. Because once you cross that line, once you become the thing the war asked of you, you never come back. If this left you speechless too, this channel uncovers the hidden stories history tried to bury. Tap subscribe, because the truth doesn't come easy. And share this with someone who still believes war only lives in the past.